Robert.
Yo, what's shaking AC? What are you doing? Pizza. Oh, look at all that confetti.
I'm keeping you on your toes.
Yes, you are. Celebrations. Yeah. For anyone listening and not watching the videos, Angela's using hand gestures to set off fireworks and confetti with the new Zoom features. So that's exciting.
Yeah, people are looking. Okay, so people that are there. We go. We got balloons. Woo! It's the funniest thing. I was literally running a round table, and I was just, I talk with my hands a lot, and next thing you know, there were balloons, there were fireworks behind me, there was confetti going. I'm like, what is happening?
Well,
So that, yeah.
Speaking of roundtables, right? You recently had one. Was it maybe yesterday? I think with
Yep.
field coaches, right?
Yeah.
What'd you guys
Yeah.
talk about there?
Oh, by the way, field coach, I have to admit, I shouldn't, but I will. It's probably my favorite roundtable. The field coaches are so collaborative, and I mean, it's just bring a bunch of coaches together. They just coach each other. The
Yeah.
coaches coach each other. Yesterday we talked about on the subject of getting franchisees out of being stuck in the day-to-day operations of their business, which you and I ranted about last week, helping them, we were talking about helping them be better business owners. So we were talking about what kinds of things can you use to help a franchisee at different times. So for example, one of the ones that got brought up was when a franchisee knows they need to hire someone, especially if it's like admin or certain tasks and things, those analysis where you might do like elevate, delegate, automate, so you decide what things can be automated, what things can be delegated. Well, the process talked about was when you have like a chart, right? With I'm afraid to talk with my hands. Things might start going off on my
quadrant chart. Yeah.
Yeah, a quadrant chart. And so you have where one section is things that you love to do and you're good at. One is that things that you're good at but you don't love to do. One is things that you aren't good at but you like to do, and then the things that you're not good at and you don't like to do. Well, anything that falls in that last quadrant, obviously those are things that you should think about delegating. So the point was helping franchisees when they're hiring to use that quadrant to determine what things that they're hiring someone to actually do. So that was one example. And all the examples that came up, we talked about, like, when would you use this? What is this useful for? So that was one example. SWOT analysis is always a good one when, just in general, I guess. And then one other one that came up is when after an event, something along the lines of what's going well, what's broken, and what's confusing. And so assessing how things went so that going into the next one, you go in with some improvement, I guess, and clarity. So those are a few examples. Thoughts? Do you have any of your
yeah,
that you like?
I feel like I have seen and created and whatever, like just buckets of resources, right? For all sorts of stuff. We just went through a SWOT analysis recently with our FAC, right? So there's all these different quadrants and resources and all that sort of thing, but what comes to my head, and I think this is important for field coaches to know, is that you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, So you can have all of these resources, you could create a SWOT analysis and everyone will be like, yeah, high five. And then what? Like somebody needs to be there to tackle the threats, to tackle the weaknesses. You could do an assessment of a recent marketing campaign that came out. And then what? You've got to do something with that information. Otherwise, you just keep playing with so many tools, right? So I think the tools are one part of the equation, which is sort of the subject of what we're talking about now. But I just want to make it explicitly clear to people that, thinking that you have tools and that you have processes and all that sort of stuff, that's only a portion. It doesn't stop there. In fact, that's the easy portion. Getting the horse to drink is the more difficult one, because everyone's always got an excuse. Somebody's playing the victim. There's always something else to do. Well, then what? I keep thinking about that little kid from the listen, Linda meme, and he's just like, and what? And what? Anyways, I won't digress there.
Okay. I don't know that one, so you would have had to explain it. I guess you'll have to explain it later. But Well, that's funny that you said that, because when I send out the topic email for what the roundtable discussion is going to be about, the questions were, what are some tools? And there were a couple other questions. And then it was, and how do you get people to use the tools? So it was exactly that. And well, my first response is, I mean, that's what coaches are for, right? Is it's not just presenting things. That's otherwise you wouldn't even need the coach. You just send it off. But the coach's job is to help the franchisee, walk them through using it so that they understand the value of it, right? And helping them understand what are the action steps that come out of it. The example that I mentioned about the quadrants, well, that's an immediate action step. It's like we're using it to determine who we're going to hire, right? Mm-hmm. So like what skill set or skills we're looking for in a person, or what, skills and kind of, I guess, like experience maybe that they have that they can do a certain thing. So some of the tool, like we were doing it in a pretty random way, but some of those tools and resources are things that you're just using when you're like with the franchisee in the moment. Okay, let's do a SWOT analysis together. And then when we do, we're going to look at the weaknesses, and we're going to look at we'll call those issues, the like traction style, and call those issues. And let's make up an action plan to deal with those weaknesses.
That's exactly what I was thinking. When I thought about what do you do with these weaknesses and threats, you create an issues list and then create action items,
Yeah. Now I would argue that with threats, sometimes you don't necessarily create action steps immediately because it's not a current threat, it's the future, but you're like what we just actually, with AC Inc. just added it to our quarterly to review those threats every quarter when the leadership team meets, those things that we see as potential threats, that you could just keep an eye on them. Sometimes it's that, but anyway, so those are some, so yeah, that's my response to like how to get people to do them. I think showing them what this is going to do for you, like to see the value that this brings to you to use this tool or whatever it is. Right. So, so those were a few examples. Other things that came up, just for what it's worth, were, what books do you get them to read? What podcasts do you get them to watch? Obviously, every franchisee is different in how open they are to wanting that and doing it. Like, if you're struggling to get them to even meet with you, the odds of them going reading a book. Although I will say one of the tips that came up was the Blinkist app, which is that app that I think about that summarizes books for you. So you just listen, you can like get this high level summary of a book in 20 minutes that would have taken you maybe 8 hours total audible time or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that came up.
Yeah, I saw another one that you had that was, again, a quadrant, and you were talking about franchisees that are high performer, or like the performance and the revenue, I think, right? Like high performer, low revenue, high performer, high revenue, low performer, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. So one axis was revenue and one axis was engagement.
Engagement. That's what it was.
And so that was one of the hot takeaways from my panel at Springboard from Clarissa, that one was for the franchisor or field coaches to use to assess the franchisees and determine where should we put the priority. And the big priority number one was on, or should be on, let me hope I get this right, high engagement, low revenue, because they're engaged, but they're not making revenue. What's going on there? And can we get their revenue up? I don't know. In some ways, I think you could argue the other way around, though. If they're not engaged, or like low engagement, low revenue, let's see if we can get you engaged. Does that make your revenue go up?
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting. So all these little like things, that was what the roundtable was about. And I think, it's great to have the bigger strategy type resources in place, like action trackers we use at AC Inc., as things like, a roadmap, a VTO, the traction, vision traction organizer. But sometimes also there's these little things that you can use, that help franchisees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that just occurred to me is this ABCD thing, but I don't think we have time to talk about this. Maybe we'll record a different
We ran out of time.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
All right.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Go be awesome.